All right, welcome back. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV, and it is a terrific Tuesday, as it always is. For me, as I always say every day, I got my faith, I got my family, I got my freedom, and I got my food. I'm good. If I'm upright in the morning, like I am right now, I'm already having a terrific day. But your day will get significantly better when we're joined right now by Bob Barr. Bob Barr is the president of the Law Enforcement Education Foundation, former congressman from Georgia, and joins us as often as he can. I thank you for joining us again, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you once again.
I love it when you join us. Our audience loves when you're on, and you know this stuff so good. So you say right now China is still, in your most recent op-ed here, China is really starting to sweat the different ways that Trump is picking away at their spying and their intelligence maneuvers.
China for decades has been getting away with all sorts of theft of not only our commercial information, commercial data in this country, but national security data as well. We went into this in great detail back in the late 90s. When I was still in the Congress, it was very clear based on our study and our evidence and testimony at that time that China had been already at that time engaged for years in a long-term complex scheme to siphon up and vacuum up as much data as they could, including national security data. Since then, very little has been done by the Bush and Obama administrations. Finally, the Trump administration is starting to come down hard on China, and that's what's causing them to sweat. You know, unfortunately, the people at the Pentagon, though, still do not seem to have gotten the message that you don't deal with China. China is an adversary. They're not a friend. And yet people at the Pentagon don't seem to realize that.
Yeah, my background's in technology, and you know I can only imagine how sophisticated their technologies are. But Mr. Barr, I was just talking to a pretty high Republican in the RNC who was saying that they're very seriously looking at, there's about 300,000 donations made to Joe Biden through this Act Blue platform. People's names made donations, they checked off a box unemployed. And Act Blue doesn't reveal or back check the credit card. As long as it swipes, they don't keep the information, they say. So could China be making donations backdoor through Act Blue?
It wouldn't surprise me at all. Back in the late 90s, we traced money coming in from the Chinese Communist Party and directly from the Chinese People's Liberation Army into the Clinton-Gore campaign. So the fact that China is trying to sneak money in to fund campaigns for candidates that they would like to see in office, such as the Biden campaign, wouldn't surprise me in the least.
So, and you know, back when you were in the Congress, you guys actually started a task force that came out with the Cox report. And, you know, in your words here, it says that there were eyebrow-raising reports that you heard down that made you start the task force. They actually stole our U.S. missile and weapons technology for some of our most sensitive weapon systems, right?
They did. That was back in the late 90s. That has continued. And yet, time after time after time, when this information and what China is doing comes to the attention of the public and media folks who are concerned, like yourself, and even people in the government, the last three administrations have done very, very little to really stop it. Part of it has to do with commercial interests wanting to do business in China and with the Chinese. That's a problem. But what is particularly disturbing is the frequency with which we see the Pentagon, that is the Defense Department, entering into contracts with companies that have ties to China. They do this on a regular basis and are not stopped from doing so. Yep. When they get caught, they make up these excuses. Well, we didn't really know that this pharmaceutical company had ties to China, or we really didn't know that this app that our people are using had ties to China. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out and discover these ties to China. Yet the Pentagon turns a blind eye to it, and it's very dangerous to our national security.
So you go on to speak about a little later an area where I'm very familiar, that China, TikTok's ByteDance and Xiaomi, the China's largest cell phone companies, they are attempting to start U.S. online stock brokerage companies. Now, I can tell you that my background is in Wall Street, and I'm frequently a consultant for companies who are starting from scratch for a U.S. clearing firm where you can actually settle trades. I have seen about 10 companies out of China in the last 12 months applying to be a new U.S. clearance broker-dealer. And it just looks to me like they've figured out a way in our settlement system to infiltrate and wash cash again.
China, and you know far more about this than I do. I don't have the financial and technical background. Mine is more in law and prosecutions. But the Chinese resent the fact that they are not the world's premier financial power. And they are engaged in a long-term project, a long-term goal to overtake the U.S. in this regard. And one of the ways that they hope to do that is to supplant the U.S. In terms of its ability and presence on the financial markets around the world and the stock exchanges. And that is precisely what China is trying to do.
100%. And you talk here about, this company, Webull Financial Services, who I've had some preliminary dealings with over the last couple of years. And they basically came into the U.S. market, did everything they had to do. There's good U.S. people running it, but their money's behind it, right? And they made it zero trading, so zero commission trading. And I think I'm saying, like, why would they make it zero? They have an alternative motive. But Webull was one of the first companies to break that free trading, and now you see all these other companies followed. So maybe they want to capture information. Maybe they just want to capture as much market share as they can. So they own more and more of our U.S. data, but you can trade there for free, zero.
Certainly, that's what they want to do. And the reason, at least one of the reasons why they're able to do this is because there is Chinese Communist Party money behind it. It's not free enterprise. It is only free enterprise on the surface. Behind the surface, behind the green curtain, so to speak, is the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party.
I mean, I don't think a lot of people in America truly, fully understand the way the country China works, that if you're a successful company that's allowed to go, worldwide, the government owns that, right? Like, I mean, I know this and you know this, but I mean, the government owns anything that is successful there.
Certainly they do. They may not own it on the surface, but you just scratch the surface a little bit, and the Chinese Communist Party, and in some instances, the Chinese People's Liberation Army are behind it, they're funding it, and they're controlling it. And this is why it is so disturbing to see the Pentagon, our Defense Department, entering into agreements with companies that have these ties to China.
So way back in 2008, 2009, I got called in through a friend as an expert to the Senate Judiciary and Banking meetings on China manipulation of the stock market during the bank crisis. And we kind of got a pretty good beat on China. Countries that China has these big infrastructure projects with, airports, airlines, ports, they were shorting U.S. banks. So China was using, foreign country sovereign accounts to short our banking system. And then we learned a lot. I learned a lot then that, wow, that's a pretty devious way to do it. But they were doing it.
They may be communists, but they are very clever at manipulating capitalists.
No question about it. Nobody as clever as you, Mr. Barr. Thank you so much again for joining us. You're always a great pleasure to have.
Thanks for having me.
That's Bob Barr, former congressman from Georgia, esteemed member of the impeachment team that tried to get Bill Clinton out of office. We have a much more of a great show for you. News of the day coming up after this, so I get to go on another rant. And I want to remind you that today is National Linguini Day. Be right back.